The last segment of our going through this booklet, Did Early Christians Preach Door to Door, details the evidence from Paul's own epistles. After all, we have 13 epistles from Paul in which Paul discusses a lot of stuff. Does he ever get to house-to-house evangelism, or for that matter, any public evangelism by the average Christian? Well, here's how we discussed it at the time. The evidence of Paul's epistles. In Paul's letters, we have first-hand evidence of the pastoral emphases of the great apostle himself. In the letters to the Romans, Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, thought to be a general letter, by the way, to the Asian churches, Philippians, Colossians, and Thessalonians, we have insight into exactly what Paul considered to be spiritual service of worship. That's Romans 12:1 in the New American Standard Version. In addition to these 9 congregational letters, we have 4 pastoral epistles from Paul's hand. That is Timothy, Titus, and Philemon, which flesh out the shepherding emphases we noted in Paul's address to the Ephesian elders in Acts 20. What do these 13 letters reveal as to the importance of witnessing in Paul's mind? According to the Watchtower Comprehensive Concordance of 1973, Paul uses the words witness, witnessed, witnesses, and witnessing a total of 32 times in his 13 epistles. The concept of witness is therefore of some importance to Paul. Yet of the 32 occurrences, the witnesses are God 5 times, Paul 6 times, Christ once, the Spirit once, the conscience of Paul and others 3 times, the law once, a Cretan prophet once, the audience for Timothy's ordination twice. 2 references are to the general principle of the law regarding the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. This leaves 9 occasions where the word witness is found with we, our, or an unspecified subject. Most of these occurrences, if not all, when examined in context, will be found to refer to the apostles. This leaves a single example where Paul undoubtedly refers to the witness of the members of the congregations he founded and served. In this single instance, that is 1 Thessalonians 2 verse 10, the local believers are reminded of how they are witnesses to the blamelessness of the apostles. Not once, amid the myriad instructions Paul gives to the disciples regarding spiritual worship, does Paul ever command or even recommend that those Christians witness. It is instructive that when the Watchtower goes to Paul's epistles for a proof text for their public preaching, they usually are left with 2 Timothy 4 verse 2. Here is the only place in Paul or any of the apostolic epistles where we have a command to preach. However, as even the title of the epistle gives away, it is Elder Timothy, Paul's deputy in Ephesus, who is receiving the imperative to preach. In verse 5, Paul makes his wish for Timothy explicit. Do the work of an evangelist. Fulfill your ministry. We never hear Paul give such an instruction to the members of the congregations. 2 Timothy 4:2 is one of 31 occurrences of the word preach, preacher, preaches, or preaching in Paul's letters, according to the New World Translation Comprehensive Concordance. Of the remaining 30, 12 refer to Paul, and 8 to we, or our. As with witness, context almost always indicates the references to the apostles. The other 10 occurrences do not specify the subject, but context reveals they refer to either the apostles or Jewish or false teachers, e.g. Romans 2:21 and 2 Corinthians 11 verse 4. We reiterate, not once does Paul give a congregation instructions to preach or witness. In fact, in his last epistle, the same second letter to Timothy, Paul sums up how he considers the good news was proclaimed in all creation under heaven in that generation. Colossians 1 verse 23. Speaking of his own court case before the Roman magistrate, Paul says, quote, "But the Lord stood with me and strengthened me, in order that through me the proclamation might be fully accomplished, and that all the Gentiles might hear." Let me read that again. The Lord stood with me and strengthened me, in order that through me the proclamation might be fully accomplished, and that all the Gentiles might hear. 2 Timothy 4 verse 17 in your American Standard Bible. Paul has reached many hundreds of millions more Gentiles through his epistles written from prison than he ever reached by his organized preaching tours. Little could the apostle have realized how the Lord would use even the evil of Paul's imprisonment to praise him. God, as Paul learned, is not dependent on human plans, means, and methods to get his work done.